Welcome to the autopsy bench. People say, oh, get a Y61. You can't blow them up. Oh yes, you can. So here we have a very expensive bill. Y61 locker, ARB. We're going to have to strip that and repair it because something's gone wrong in there as well. And we're upgrading this with a pegging system. So quite an expensive bill. It's all very well going for Y61s, and they are much stronger than a Land Rover Diff, but the bills are much bigger. ARB in the centre there is £1,000–1,200 plus VAT. Crown wheel and pinions, serious money, and the bearings the same. These are not cheap units to upgrade. The shafts are about £500 a corner, but you get a stronger unit. But when things go wrong, your bank balance feels it. So first thing we're going to do is strip this apart and get it down to cleaning company, get it aquablast cleaned. Well, we were going to send it off to the blasters. We're going to put the bolts back in, but then when we looked at the bolt, we realised they really have had a hard time. That's got quite a bend in it. So we're going to have to, and the other one's even worse. Hell of a bend in that, quite unbelievable. So that's pretty impressive. Hunty for bolts time. There's a few nasty bits that have made it onto the top here from the crown wheel, which really doesn't look very happy at all. It's taken chunks off everywhere. What I'm wondering is what's going to be going on. And yes, that bearing's had a clout as well, God knows how. This went with one hell of a bang. Well, before we can start pegging the Y61 casing, we've got to build two diffs. Yes, and there are a selection of bits here from various diffs. We've got a mix of HF, ARB, other bits of ARB, other bits of God knows what, and I've got to pick the best of this lot to make the best diff, and then put it in the lathe and machine it for going into the peg case, and then the second best of everything and build a second diff and make sure they all work and don't leak air. Challenge accepted. One of the things that's worth mentioning is this is a genuine Y61 crown wheel, and if you look at the gap here between the very edge of that bolt to there, that's the total distance we've got to actually peg it. The problem is that the ARB comes out to about here, so there's very little room here to actually put the pegging pad on. Now what we can do and have done is we just take a couple of mil, literally a couple of mil makes a little bit of difference, and bring the ARB centre slightly inboard, especially as this is using Allen bolts of a higher grade. But the really good thing is when you buy a crown wheel from Dan Hickling that he sells, can't remember what ratio this is, but this is his new one that's going on, and there it is. Oh, professional camera work as ever, Barker. Yeah, well, I don't know where the bloody hell the oh, bear with me, go and make a cup of tea. Right, here we go. This is a 5.125 crown wheel and pinion from Dan Hickling. Because the rear is flatter, we have a greater area now between there and there to run the pad. So with a couple of mil off, we can get about 80% of the pad coverage on the back, which is a hell of a lot. Whereas on here, we struggle. So another reason to buy Dan's crown wheel and pinions, other than their bloody good value, we have built many of these, and we've had no complaints from any off-roaders at all about the quality or the strength. So we're going to crack on. We've got bits in piles, we've got bits sorted out, and oh, the Russians have arrived, and we've got bits in all three ultrasonic cleaners all rattling away. Well, we've shoved both units through the ultrasonic cleaner. We've done a bit of sorting out of gears and bits and bobs of what's going to go again. This one here is the genuine ARB, and it's got some fairly nasty nadgers and quite a lot of rust on it, but inside is probably better condition. Where the gears sit, there is a bit of wear, but it's the better of the two, probably because it's slightly better steel. But then again, if you're buying this new, the ARB's 1200 quid, and the Dan Hickling Y61 HF that he imports about 500 quid. We know this is the HF. It's got a bit more wear on it, but inside it's got rust, and then it's got quite severe picking up where the bearing sits. So we've made a decision, an executive decision, that that one is going to be the spare, and that one, with all its rust and goo and dirt and God knows what, is going to be the better of the two. And we are going to put this through our polishing machine and see if we can't make this a little bit nicer before we build it, and we'll put all the other bits through the polishing machine as well. So with no more ado, I'm going to drag a big box of bits down to the porcelain polishing machine, and that will be in there for the whole day. And here's a little bit of info. Here we have Y61 locking ring. Now this has done an awful lot of work. You can see where the teeth there have really got some heavy wear in them. That's a combination of usage and also of crash engaging. This is where you engage the locker more than walking speed. This is a genuine ARB. We've checked it out. Right, here we have 3 Y61 locking rings. This one here is out of the diff that's blown up, and you can see massive wear on the teeth here. That's a combination of usage and also that this has been crash engaged. Crash engaging is where you engage the locker at anything more than walking speed, and is a really bad practice. So this one is pretty much on its way out. The next one is a genuine ARB. This is unused, so you can see the difference in the teeth. They're much squarer there and wider because they haven't been worn out. And finally, this one was taken out of the ARB when it obviously was new, and this little baby was put in, which is a Spider Trax. Now that's got some wear on it, and the wear is almost where the teeth go in between, and that's just heavy usage. It's not unusable, and it's Spider Trax, so this is better quality metal than your standard ARB. This is an upgrade, and they were fearsomely expensive when they were new. So we're going to go with this one in the ARB build, and that's also going in the polishing machine. That one's going to go back as a, you can have it back mate, we're not using it. We'd normally bin it, but it's the customers. And that one is going into the HF spare build. Now, one of the problems is that when you've done a lot of crash engaging and you've basically chipped away at the various teeth around there, those little bits of metal go places, and this is where they've gone. They've gone into the thrust washers, and you can see just how gnarled up these are. So these are scrap. I have a feeling that these might be the same as an RD128, which I've got in stock, so I'm going to have a look around. But that's what happens if you don't change your oil and you do crash engaging, or more simply drive hard in competitions, which a lot of people do. It is one of those things that happen. Play hard, you get big bills, but you might win. So there you go, 2 going in the polisher, 1 going back. Now Jerry said to me, there's a big box of spares, use any parts that you can. So we've got here 7 thrust washers. You work out whether or not any of these are going to be good enough to get. It's like a sort of criminal lineup of scrap. So they're all going back. So I've got a problem now that we can't use anything but 1 thrust washer, and that's questionable. Lovely. Well, a day later, and everything that we've chosen as the best is laid out on the bench. A lot of things look better when they come out of the polishing machine. Unfortunately, some things look worse, and these are the thrusts, which we don't really want to go again. They are pretty nasty, but luckily we have 2 brand spanking ones along with 4 brand spanking thrusts. So we're going to reassemble this now so we can actually move forward in working out the pegging of the casing. Well, we're nearly there. We've got the centre all back together. That's nice and smooth now. We've got the end flange. Now, believe it or not, even something as big as this Y61 locker used 9 of these tiny little springs that used to drop in there and cause terrible problems. What the later ones have, thank goodness, is a wavy spring conversion. So we're fitting that to it. And now we're going to put the top on and see if it's all okay. Well, that's looking a hell of a lot happier than when I was delivered a box of bits. We have ground off the lumps and bumps and tidied it up as much as we can. The other side was a lot worse. That had a lot of gouges, and we've cleaned that up as best we can. You don't want to leave little bits of metal that could technically break off when it's whizzing round. There's also no sharp edges, so providing this holds air, which it should, because that is actually polished up. You can see where the O-rings sit, but it actually doesn't look too bad. Other than the pair of bearings we've got to change, all the rust is off it, and it should be good to start building a peg casing with it around with the new crown wheel and pinion. If you're going to TIG weld something, it's got to be clean. First rule of TIG welding is clean it again, then clean it one more time, then clean your rods, then check it's all clean, and then maybe just clean it before you weld. So this is the casing back from the cleaners, and we are going to weld up the peg plate on the side. These are incredibly difficult to do. They're very, very time consuming. If nothing else, apart from the setting up of the plates and the welding in the jig, we've then got to strip the milling machine and reset it with a completely different unit to hold this in place and set it all up for machining, drilling and tapping. The first bit is to get it all cleaned off a bit more and then get the plates in place, which we've had CNC made but still have to be fettled a little bit. This weirdly complex jig puts the pad pretty much in the right position, and then what I do is I mark it and I drill through. Now what we're doing here is, if you see that blue spot should be the center of that there, and we spent an awful lot of time just fettling that to get it dead right. And now we're going to tack weld the first place into place. Well, the first 3 plates are in, and now what we've got to finish this off is a big plate that goes right down to the nose to spread the load a bit further. That would probably do, but we like to be a bit OTT. There's a bit of 12mm S276 going in there. That is so unbelievably hot, I can barely hold the video camera near it. But needs must and all that. Well, we've got the main plate welded on. Just giving that a little while to cool down because it's so hot. It's getting dangerously hot now, so I need to let that cool a bit before I do any more welding on it. There's a lot of heat gone into that, so I don't want things twisting. So we've got that pretty well welded up, and yes, we put a little XS 4x4 tag on there. I don't think that's going to come apart in a hurry, so we're going to give a long time to cool down, and then we're going to backfill it with our metal replacement resin, then clamp it in the milling machine vise, set it all up, and drill and tap it. But I'm very pleased with that. So we've filled the cavity with the metal replacement resin. There's no leaks anywhere, there's a dribble out of there, but it was sealed anyway, so that's good. So now we've got to strip the milling machine to put our jig on there that we've made for this, and then machine the hell out of it, and then we can finally put it all back together. As an indicator, I started this at 10:15 this morning, had a small break when customer turned up to pick up a couple of diffs. It's now 6:20, and I'm going to have several beers because I've had enough. But that is a proper day's work to do one of these. Sadly, when we do Y61s, they tend to be one-offs, and the time it takes to change all the equipment over on the milling machine and put our jig on is beyond belief. But here is Jerry's Y61 all welded up. We've got a very modern coolant system with a 10mm insertable cutter, fly cutter. We're going to face off the top of this here, then we're going to drill through, then we're going to tap, and then we're going to paint. So God knows how old technology meets really modern technology. So let's sort this out. Job number 1. And all of that has come out of the one hole, and the problem with this is that it's had a lot of heat put into it, so the metal is hardened, including the casting, and we've got a very expensive bit of tooling here. This has got removable, replaceable special tips for dissimilar metals drilling. There's 2 of them on the drill, and they're 40 quid a piece. And when we're drilling into Y61s, the angle we're drilling is obviously 90 degrees straight down, but we're not drilling into a flat plate. The plate is more at that angle, and we're drilling down onto it. So we've got to go really, really easy. And one of the advantages with this is it has coolant. So if I switch on the pump, there is coolant that comes out of that as it's drilling down from each side, and that helps both lubricate, because it's a lubricating coolant, and also prolong the life of the tips and helps make a better cut. If we use a standard drill, there's every likelihood it will either chip, burr, or heat up the area, and then we've got a real problem. It's not as though we can just drag another case in and start again. These are very tricky to do, but we drilled 2 holes. So now all we've got to do is tap the holes, and we use our auto tapping head for that. So let's get on with 2 holes, and then I can breathe out in a sigh of relief. And I should probably just TIG weld over there, because I've machined out some of the weld to get a clean finish on the top, but soon put that back. So this is our auto tapping head. It has an extremely expensive tap in there. It's a special one to go through all sorts of things. And we're going to put this through very, very gently to tap the hole. We've got cutting oil on it, and here it goes in. This is the amazing bit when we get nearer the bottom. I'll show you what it does. There it comes out. Beautiful. 1 down, 1 to go, and I can have a breather. I am so pleased to see that nice big tap hole all the way through. It's Sunday, and I'm going to have a bloody beer because I can relax now. Jumping ahead, we've now got it all cleaned up. We've got the pegging bolts in. You can see the penetration that's come through from the welding. Drilled the hole in the very awkward place for the ARB to come out of, and moving on to getting the centre back in. It's a huge amount of work to get to this spot. The number of hours is just quite daft, but it will be very strong. Quick lesson on bearings. Koyo are not Chinese, they're not nasty. Koyo are Japanese, and they are standard fitment for a lot of the Japanese vehicles. So this is having 2 new Koyo bearings on the ARB we've rebuilt. It's also got a new head and a new tail, and we've had great fun trying to shim it up. This has turned into a nightmare. These threads are very, very fine. They're actually a metric thread. A lot of Japanese stuff is metric, but this is metric super fine, and the bolts have all got damaged. The threads have all got damaged, which is very common. So we have bought some very expensive bolts to replace the ones that really are scrap. These are about £6 each, and we're going to replace these with Nord locks, and we've just had to go and buy some special taps, a set of 3, taper, second and bottom, and we've tapped everything out and cleaned it all within an inch of its life, and now, some huge amount of time later, we can try putting it back together for the 3rd time. Japanese bolts have shorter shank ratio to thread ratio, so not only have we got to play around with the threads, we've actually had to cut 4 additional threads on a 12.9 grade socket cap bolt. This is tough old stuff, but it's come up really nicely. So this, with a Nord lock, should sort out the clamping problem. From the box of bits of 3 or more broken ARB Y61 bits and bobs, we've done the best we can. I have to say it's not the nicest diff that we've ever turned out of here. Oh, something's just landed. It's not the nicest diff we've ever built, but it will be going in an Ultra 4 truck and going to get whacked round the head pretty much as soon as the engine starts. We've replaced everything we possibly can. We've played with the towers, we've put a longer bolt in one of the towers which was quite severely damaged. We've put all new metric superfines on the crown wheel with new Nord locks. We've Nord locked and put longer bolts in the carrier. Everything's been polished within an inch of its life, and of course it's been pegged as well and all set up, ready for Jerry to go and do his worst with it. The bills for these can be quite horrendous, and even more so when they get damaged. But there you go, it will live again. Just bye for now.